Hello, this is your instructor again, John Schmidt, as we continue along in our personal finance course. And I just wanted to, as we're looking at Chapter 9 here and looking at personal loans and specifically car loans, just to give you a few words of wisdom. As I said before, one of your life goals should be trying to become debt-free in your life. So by the time you reach or near retirement age, you do not have any debt that you have to look forward to, that you have your retirement set up, that you have all of your personal goals have been met. And why do this? Well, as we've been looking at the words of wisdom out of one of the world's oldest money management textbooks, the Bible, we read in there that the borrower is servant to the lender. And we're a servant to the lender. We don't have the freedom to spend as we may desire. We, in essence, are a slave. A portion of our income has to be set aside to be paid to them. We don't have the choice to spend it as we please. So I just want to say a few words of wisdom concerning cars themselves and buying a new car versus buying a used car. Now, there's lots of pros and cons to either. There are lots of arguments that could be made either way. And I'm not going to get into the utilitarian type of arguments with respect to just which may be a better vehicle for your personal use. But I do want to say this, that a lot of times when you buy a new car, you, in essence, for the first 3 years at least of that car, you will have very few maintenance costs associated with that car. Conversely, if you buy a used car, then you will probably have higher associated maintenance expenses, things breaking, things going wrong, you having to pay for services that you may not have to pay for in the first 3 years. So when you're comparing new versus used, you always want to compare those things on a comparative cash flow basis. Now, one of the things you hear about buying a new car is that the car depreciates immediately when you drive it off the lot. And that's very true. If you are going to sell the car within a set number of years, for example, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you may come out on the short end if you buy a new car. That's why I think, just from the standpoint of wisdom itself, when you are talking about buying a car, I would suggest that you always buy a car with the thought process that you plan on keeping that car for 10 years, let's say. Now, again, is if you are starting a family and you need to expand because your little Toyota Prius no longer works when you've got 3 kids, then that, of course, is going to be different considerations. But if you buy a car with the mindset that says, I'm not going to keep buying new and keep buying new, I'm going to use this thing until I almost have run it into the ground, you, in essence, have changed your mindset to become debt-free, of what we talked about in the last video. Then you have an opportunity to become debt-free through car loans also. And one of the things I would suggest is, not only do you just have a mindset that thinks about having that car much, much longer than what may be normal, is that when you are done making car payments on that new car, if you buy a new car, or even if you buy a used car and have car payments, once you reach the end of those payments, continue to make payments to yourself. And here's what I mean. If you're paying $250 a month in a car payment and you finally get that car paid off, what do we normally do? Well, we usually say, wow, I got an extra $250 to spend. What am I going to spend it on? And the money just kind of fritters away. And you get to the end of the year and you go, what in the world happened to all that money? That extra $250. What I would suggest is that you pay the $250 to yourself. You set it aside. Maybe you set up a separate savings account. Do something where you write a check to yourself, something that says this will be for the car. And what you start to do is, over time, you start to then accumulate a balance for the car. And eventually that balance can serve one of two purposes. One of them is there's an emergency car repairs. As your car gets older, you have a need to repair. That's the account that you use to pay for it, instead of using the regular money that you have coming in. Also, you're starting to save up for down payment on a new car. And if you keep a car for 10 years, let's say you had a 5-year car loan on that, that means you're paying off 5 years of car debt, and then you're saving up another 5 years worth of payments. So by that time, you may have at least 50%, if not more, of the car that you're able to buy in cash. And then you do that same cycle again, so that you have a 5-year loan and you pay yourself, and then the next time you have even more money that can go in, and eventually you get to a point where you buy your cars completely debt free. Wouldn't that be great? No car payments and new cars. Just this again is my personal druthers, is avoid leasing if you can. There's a number of reasons for it. Some of them are finance related. Some of them are just personal preference related, especially if you have a mindset that you want to become debt free. Leasing by its nature kind of forces you to turn the car back in after a certain period of time, 3 years, 4 years, whatever the leasing arrangement is, and then you have to turn around and get another car, and that just forces you in this cycle of being constantly under car debt. Additionally, you may have, depending upon the lease arrangement, you may have some sort of penalties for mileage penalties or things like that really kind of put you under the gun. And one of the other things, last suggestion I want to make with respect to just car loans itself is shop around, especially when it comes to the car loans. One of the things that you will find that is periodically there are car loan offers, and there are certain times of years that these will come in, place where there's 0% financing incentives. Now you have to be careful, because sometimes the 0% financing is on a car that is more expensive and is more than what you need. But if you are able to get 0% financing, do it. Get that loan if you cannot pay for the car in cash. Get that loan, and again, once the loan is paid off, just continue to pay yourself that same car loan, and you start to get into this where cars, instead of becoming a burden, you become something that they're a vehicle to become debt free.